We'll open the meeting at 5:11. Okay. We'll start by reviewing the draft minutes from the previous meeting. Are there any comments? Questions, feedback?
They were good.
We approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Yep.
Aye.
You don't have anyone on Zoom? Any members?
No members that,
So we'd like to do roll.
I might propose, I don't know, is anyone from the South County Senior Center here?
Yes.
Okay, very good, all right. Start with that,
Yeah.
we might as well start with that.
I'm gonna pass this out. Sorry, it wasn't given to you ahead of time. Joyce, you already have a copy. It's the breakdown that Julie Chalfont did.
No, I don't, I'm not, I can probably find it in my email, but I'd say don't worry about that for me.
Actually, pass it down, sorry.
I will find it in that email from Julie.
Thank you. So hi, my name is Jennifer Remillard, or had been Remillard, it's Ferrara. So if you see that interchangeably, I just got divorced, nothing life changing. So the reason I'm here today is next week I'll have been with the South County Senior Center for 3 years. When I started this position, I came into this job hearing a lot of complaints from the older adults within our 3 communities. I'm not sure if you're aware, we have over 3,000 residents within Deerfield, Sunderland, and Whately, who are the age of 60 and older, and that percentage is only expected to increase. By 2035, we'll have about 37% of older adults making up the population of our 3 towns. At this point in time, we are currently renting a space at 22 Amherst Road in Sunderland. It's about 1,700 square feet. We also have a basement where we can store items. It's not damp, it's finished. We just don't hold programs or anything because except for my spare officer of staff needs to go into privacy because we don't have any private space upstairs to host meetings without being open to the seniors. So primarily that space currently is utilized for our daily programming, except we utilize at the Whately Town Hall, our movement classes, our enhanced fitness class, some speaking engagements, all at no cost because we are part of, Whately's town, which is wonderful. The biggest issue we have, in addition to using that space, we're hosting our monthly food bank donation the second Wednesday of every month at the First Congregational Church of Sunderland. And we also partner with Cadence Yoga to offer off-site movement classes at their location. The biggest complaint that we receive is, where are you going to be? Because while we do a fabulous newsletter that has all of this information, sometimes when you're running out the door, you don't always check where it's going to be, or you misread the wrong date. So we're getting folks who are going to the wrong locations. And instead of being able to just go, up the street or a little bit, it's a little more confusing. As you may or may not be aware, depending on how long you've been a member of this board or this town, there have been people who've been asking for a new senior center for more than 40 years. And I don't exaggerate that because I have seniors who come to my center and they say my parents were asking for a new center. I can find newspaper articles going back more than 20 years talking about the old building on 67 North Main Street in South Deerfield. My reason for being here tonight is not to rehash all of the old things that everybody's aware of. It's to present to you what we can accomplish with a new center centrally located to provide services and supports to our older adults within our community. As of December 31st, 2024, we have 480 active members for 2024. I'm not sure if you're aware, but when I first started, even though it was COVID, we, the 2 years leading up, there was affected by COVID. We only had 124 active members. In 2018, it was around 200. But from 124 to 480, we have increased our membership by 287%. That is huge. We need to have a facility to meet the needs of all of these older adults. And our UMass needs assessment, which was conducted in the fall of 2021 to the spring of 2022, where the stakeholders, which are the older adults within the 3 towns, over 1,300 responded, who conducted the survey. The biggest need is a new center. You cannot offer all of the programming we offer, which we are not open 9 to 12, 3 days a week. We are open Monday through Friday, with Monday offering programs from 9 and then open hours in the afternoon till 4. But we also offer bingo. We had 18 people at bingo today. We had seated dance. We had 9 people at seated dance. We have around 25 to 30 members who participate in enhanced fitness Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We also offer chair yoga, a cadence yoga. We average around 11 to 15 people for movement classes. So we are picking up every day. Since I came into my position, I've applied for and received over $573,000 in grant money. We have made a lot of strides to bring isolated older adults into our center. Most recently today, we had our 3rd digital literacy lottery cohort come through. We are accessing people at home. We are bringing them online. Some people never had an email address. So we're bringing them into the tech age as well. And by being able to offer hybrid programming through several of these grants, we're able to bring people in who may normally be isolated. But a reduction to their isolation is investing in something that not only benefits these classes that I speak of, but we provide resources, including a food pantry that's open every day of the week. We ask people to make appointments so we can kind of, especially if they're a little shy or embarrassed that they are going through, we give them some privacy and autonomy to go through and choose the items that they would like to receive. We also partner with the Food Bank of Western Mass for their Brown Bag program. And each of these programs is offered at a different site. Brown Bag is located at at Deerfield's Town Hall, so people know to go there. We have a book clinic at our site, but instead of being able to offer a private space, we are having people do a book clinic in the middle of our open space, so we can't offer an additional program because who wants to go somewhere while someone's getting their foot drilled on and have a snack at the same time. So it's, we're making the best of what we have. So in front of you, I passed out a breakdown of the cost estimate. Currently, EDM Studio was hired by Deerfield through a grant they received for $75,000 to do a feasibility study. While that study was delayed by a couple of years of getting accomplished, we have made great strides with EDM Studio, and we will have a final product to show at a community forum. We're hosting 3. We have 2 solidified dates. We're in the process of coming up with our 3rd one for March. So that would be Wednesday, February 19th at 6 p.m. at Frontier at the auditorium. We'll have one at 10:30 in the morning on Friday, February 28th at 10:30 in the morning at the Whately Town Hall. The 3rd one we're hoping to have in Sunderland. We just haven't solidified the date and location at this time because our space is too small for, bringing in the community. The one in the evening, we're hoping to gauge all people, all taxpayers in all 3 towns so they understand what we offer for services as well as what we're trying to accomplish. Right now, the highest end of the spectrum for the cost analysis has been around $16.9 million. What we did, or should I say what Julie Chalfant, who's the chair of the finance committee, did for us is to help us with our cost analysis, was to break it down based on a $15 million loan over a 20-year note at hopefully a great rate of 3%. Obviously, everything's fluctuated to change. None of this is solidified. It's all fluid. But it goes into the assessed value, including Deerfield, Sunderland, and Whately, and bases this on their annual tax bill impact of what it could be broken down. So while I have submitted I think it's, Pete, correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't have this in front of me, but it's 25% for Whately, 25% for Sunderland, 50% for Deerfield, and Deerfield's cost is around 7.5 million, and I think I proposed, is it 3.75? Or, sorry, I don't have that in front of me, I apologize, for Deerfield, or for Sunderland and for Whately for their percentage. But annually, the cost is, is much less. I believe I ballparked, Deerfield's at $502,000 annually, so it would be a quarter of that for each of the other two towns. So the reason that I'm proposing this for this fiscal year, and I know that that's, the funding aspects are up in the air for everyone, but I really feel this is a good investment in our community. We have been listening to our community members ask for a center for almost 40 years. They've been really boisterous and loud for more than 20. While we have been advocating folks to send in letters to the finance committees and the select boards, a lot of people have expressed frustration because they have been so vocal for so long. A lot of them are continuing to submit letters of support for this project. You may have received some. I know that I sent some over through Peter, and people may have mailed them in directly or emailed them in directly to you folks as well. The big portion, and I know this is a big ticket item, and one piece that I would like to share is that over the last year, we did receive new members for Whately. We did increase 17, even though we left the Holy Family Church. And that number has gone up over the years. This will be at my annual budget presentation, but we had 143 new members just join last year alone. We had 17 new members from Whately, and we're really pushing to bring our communities together. So many folks have shared, they look at it as, well, why am I going to fund this money? What do I get out of this for our town, for our older adults? You're getting the satisfaction to know that their needs are getting met. With the economic impact we see all the time of groceries, we have the potential bird flu impacting our region, which is impacting all sorts of costs. We also have the repeal of the cap for Medicare expenses going up for prescriptions. A lot of folks live on a fixed income. Now, I can understand people going, well, if they're living on a fixed income, how can they afford the tax increase? Well, one of the proposals that our team is working on in the background with our Mass in Motion grant is doing a tax abatement or work off program so people could volunteer, to put in for that, to also include the senior center for working for hours. So with my track record of writing grants, with the assistance of each of the town administrators for each town, I feel that we could apply for additional grants, including a community development block grant. The funding amount has decreased from last year to this year, but for a regional center, we could get $1.375 million with a grant. There's also fundraising activities that will be encompassed by a new nonprofit that's being put together called Building South County Communities. We have a group of volunteers who are already interested in joining and who are pursuing that at this time. So it's not all funding that will come from each of the three towns. It's the main funding source, but it's an investment in our community because people want to age at home. They do not want to be put into a nursing facility. They don't want to go to assisted living. They want to stay where they're located. And with having a vital center central to our three communities, the two areas, if you're unfamiliar with the feasibility study, one is this building location, which would be an addition on. And I hope you will join us on one of the community forum presentations so you can see. And the other one is where the current town hall for Deerfield is, the 8 Conway Street next to the police station. That area would be demolished and built into a 2-story senior center if it were placed there. If you're unaware, Deerfield has a campus plan that they're pursuing where they would take our old building at 67 North Main Street. They're currently investing money in that between a grant or an earmark and some other funding sources to create an town office there. So I humbly sit before you, asking for you to support this over the next 20 years. This investment is hopefully, I'm 48 years old, I'll be 49 in March, and I would like to create a center that I would be able to utilize. I live in South Deerfield, so I'm aware of tax ramifications, but I'm also aware of what the community is asking for. These older adults want to remain in their homes, they want to go somewhere, they want to reduce isolation, whether they're a widower or a widow. People have increased attendance, they're increasing in their demands and their asks and their needs to remain in their homes. But we've also been able to not only have a senior center that's mostly activities geared more towards women, we have brought in a lot more Unveil members, including those who attended and go to various activities, but our informational fair and cruise night, we've had 3 in the past few years. Last year, Joyce was there. We had probably over 200 individuals attend, and we're potentially having to move locations because we kind of have outgrown Hurley Park. But thank you, and I am here to answer any questions you may have.
What? You've got 2 different plans. The Deerfield plan, Whately plan. Those will be presented next month.
Yes.
Okay. What is the timeline beyond that for, and those rough ideas? What is the procedure for coming to actually what is going to be built, when it's going to be built, and what it is going to cost?
So at the forums, you're going to get to view both presentations. And I think it's a determination, Joyce, please chime in here. It's a determination of what the 3 towns come together and decide to build. I can share that the Whately plan was less expensive than the Deerfield plan. There are certain factors that impact each area, like here, the premier or premium one for this particular site in Whately would be shifting the parking out front to make it more perpendicular instead of parallel, so people would have safe walkways and other things. It would also be 1 level, compared to the upstairs, downstairs, 2 floor in Deerfield. But I think it's a meeting of all 3 towns, leadership, not just the Board of Oversight, because we've, how this came to fruition, just a little bit of background. We did hold an open house where folks from all 3 towns, we had the paper cover it, could come in, give input, give feedback on what they're looking for in a center. We had a small focus group sit and look at both sites, hear input, and we all argued to support, which site we were assigned to. That also included at the time the 23 Plumtree Road and Sunderland location. And as we went through, the vote actually shifted to all the people voting for the Whately location because of the size that we could maintain, the 1 level, the closeness, even though Deerfield is in the central location of South Deerfield, it's only 1 mile away, from this location. So I think it all depends on what the majority of the community impacted would be, because we did only have a small percentage of older adults participate in that original open house. But the goal is, right now, we're going to be sending out postcards to all of the community members, especially all taxpayers within all 3 towns. So they will hopefully attend and give input and feedback on this proposal. And there will be an opportunity to ask questions to EDM Studio about the structure, about design, etc. But it's not the nitty-gritty design because it's a feasibility study. It's not as in-depth as it could be, further down the line. But I think in the long run, to answer that question, I think it's getting everyone to agree on the location, that, or actually that they want to invest in this. Regardless of the location, you're gonna, you know, each town's gonna have to invest money. The taxpayer is gonna have to, be. Sorry, my mind just went blank. You know, they have to have buy-in as well. They also, you know, may have other communication issues or concerns. You know, and one of the things that was pointed out in the feasibility study response is that whatever town you lived in, that's the town you want at your center. Obviously, Deerfield has the largest population, but it shouldn't be based on that. It should be on what is best for us as a center for our three towns to bring give the services and supports to the, you know, to the community, and what can get us there faster as well. You know, this has already been delayed a while. The feasibility study was supposed to be conducted in 2022. Here we are, beginning of 2025. So, you know, there's been some things that have come up along the way. So, I hope that answers your question.
Not
Well,
really.
No,
Yeah, I
sorry.
think Fred
Well,
asked-
there may not be like an answer that is specific enough for you at this point. We
Okay,
simply
well, I mean-
need the leadership of the towns to decide which of these plans we would go for. And there's advantages to the Deerfield plan, there's advantages to the Whately plan. Those are things that you'll be able to see at the presentations. But I think once the communities have decided, then it becomes, well, whichever town will be the host may be the one who has to kind of set the timeline. If, for example, if it's Deerfield, they're doing other things and so on. So that we don't have enough information to say exactly what that would look like, but making the decision about location and having that come from the leadership of all the towns so that it's not something where it's just like, well, our town doesn't want to do it if it's going to be this or that. You know, we've got to get together. Everybody's gonna have to make some kind of compromise and to get this done.
Right now, I'm just thinking about the jurisdiction of this particular committee. Normally, we take projects with a specific dollar sign
Oh.
and say, do we recommend proceeding?
What the
with-
level of urgency?
What the level of urgency of doing this is. Normally, wouldn't do a prospective, we like the idea of a senior center.
I
That's
see.
really not our job.
I understand what you're saying. With that, Fred, I can specifically say the urgent need for us is as soon as possible. We've been without a home, a permanent home for several years. We've been renting space. We would like to move into a space where we're investing into the building and not just renting the space. I think it all depends on where we can get with all three towns, you know, committees, capital improvement committees. You know, I've gotten feedback from some people in Deerfield. They're not sure if that's gonna fly, but I also am hoping to generate a lot of support at the community forums with all of the information to get it on the annual town meeting for all three towns, and that's why I submitted these proposals to all three towns, you know, when for this fiscal year coming.
So I think though, your original question
Yeah.
was, is there any particular timeline implication based on the sites?
Well, are there timeline implications? Are there cost implications based on where, and we don't know where it's gonna be yet, so we don't.
But I feel like, to the first point,
Yeah.
the timeline question is important only because Deerfield is impacted by the fact that they would first have to renovate, add, and do the 1888 building, move it,
Yes,
and then they could start that project, which means,
that'd be. 2
are
years
we
from-
looking, if that is something that's happening, are we actually looking to fund this in 2026, or does it get delayed because Deerfield selected and we're not gonna be able to fund that project until they get their town offices situated?
And,
Because that plays into when we're going to start to.
yeah, as far as the timeline goes, it's looking like we're on a very short timeline for this year. I know that Sunderland and Deerfield and we have our town meeting scheduled for April. So if you're having information sessions on February 28th and after that, just doesn't sound like there's enough time to get things onto an agenda for the 3 town meetings with any kind of dollar sign attached to it. Like recommendation of support or encouragement, maybe, but I just don't see how in 4 weeks you go from information session to fund, to agreeing to fund a particular project.
Well, I understand your concern with that aspect, but we have been talking about this and bringing the community members in. This is to show both presentations.
But I'm saying, for town meeting, you're gonna need a dollar proposal, you propose to spend X 100,000, X million, whatever dollars for this town on this project. I'm not commenting on the viability or desirability of the project at all, just on the feasibility of doing it in this
Fiscal
year.
year.
In this year, it just strikes me that the timeline is so competitive, because you've got, as I said, information center session February 28th. Still have to go to the Board of Oversight for their approval and feedback. And then to 3 town, assuming that goes in one meeting, then go to 3 select boards for approval. The time just isn't there to.
So what I hear you say is to push it off to fiscal 27. Or potentially,
I think put it off to whenever you've
Come
got,
to us when you have it.
when
Numbers.
we're
Yeah.
right, when you've got a site and numbers and a plan.
When you're actually asking for money, because you're not
Right.
there yet. And that's our goal here,
Right.
is to say, we recommend this money being allocated or not,
And
and
it
you're not
says-
there yet.
As I said, no commentary on the desirability of the project. I just think it's premature to be coming
Yeah.
to this committee
okay,
with this request.
If I may?
Yeah.
If I may, just to sort of tell you where I'm coming from. First of all, I'm like, I want to be so supportive of this. I'm like senior center adjacent. Like, I'm gonna be a customer soon. Where I am is I don't quite know what this money would buy, right? So, and it feels like the conversation is almost like being pre-approved for a mortgage. You want commitment from us, like, here's a number, and we're gonna shop around and try to find something, and will you pre-approve us to spend up to this amount over 20 years?
Yeah.
I might be more open to having that conversation, if I even had an idea, like, what would a facility that you spend 15 million plus other monies on, what would that get you? Like, that's why I'm falling short there. I want to support this proposal, but I don't know what the money is going to buy.
And I think in a
Yeah.
year, we'll have a lot more of those answers
yes,
than you have now.
yes.
And so I just think that whether this committee, whether it's more appropriately the finance committee, but it's just premature for this committee to consider
Yeah.
a request without a dollar, without a plan for a building, without a dollar attached, and without a timeline for building. Again, nothing
But-
about whether or not there's there's support or not. It's just premature for this committee.
And as a.
But honestly, looking at you guys, and I'm seeing nobody fell out of their chair when they saw the numbers on that spreadsheet. I think there's a starting point there. And I agree that trying to get it onto this year's town meeting would be a really ambitious timeline. It would mean everybody has to kind of see those plans in February and March, and leadership among the 3 towns has to really get behind it. And ultimately, because these are likely to be override votes, we wouldn't really know until elections in June. But you guys are kind of the first stop on the 3-town trip to at least get this on your table. So it is now, it's on your plate. You have lots of questions. I would encourage everybody to come to One of them, if you have daytime, you'll be probably in a smaller setting to go to one of the daytime meetings or go to the February 19th evening meeting at Frontier. The people who are making our feasibility study will be able to answer exactly, Brent, what you wanted to know. Like, well, for $15 million, what are you going to get? And what would you get it if it's in what would you get if it's in Deerfield? What would you get if it's in Whately? And so that information is forthcoming. And I don't feel like I've got the PDF here. I don't feel like I should present it here because you have other customers on the agenda, and those folks will do a much better job of presenting it. But I want you I just want to reiterate a couple things Jennifer said. We started with a needs assessment with professionals helping us do that survey. We gathered numbers. Oh my God, she just keeps track of everything that happens over at the senior center with membership and tracking and what are our services and how many people are doing things. It is just freaking amazing. With all of that, and we don't have the answers to the questions you really need, and maybe the timeline isn't right for this year, but we wanted to get in here and uh, get you all who are honestly part of the leadership of the town to get you in before we have just find some final number for you. Okay?
Totally appreciate the advocacy, and I would say, like Joyce said, the per year number compared to some other things that we've seen before is not like crazy, like what are you talking about? But with more detail, it would be much easier to get to a yes.
And I understand, you know, like Joyce said, you are the first stop on the free parking at this point. We're trying to bring it forward so people know what to expect. When Peter sent out the request in other towns, we wanted to like have a 15-year projection. I wanted to make sure to get it in of like, this is what our goal is and this is where we're at. And I appreciate the feedback and the input. And we will definitely come back to you with all of the details once we have them. So thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for all the hard work you do.
Any comments?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Fire department. Fire department.
Good afternoon.
Good evening.
Good evening. I guess we've crossed the threshold.
Across the threshold.
So, here to talk to you about our capital project, which is our air pack replacement. We proposed this last year, was requested that it be moved back a year, which is what we've done. The amount that we're asking for is currently $183,000. That's to replace 15 of our air packs that we would be wearing anytime we're in what we call an ideal age or immediately dangerous to life and health environment. So this would be like in a structure fire or a car fire or dumpster fire, carbon monoxide incident. The current packs that we have are anywhere from 23 to 25 years old. They've well outlived their service life. The NFPA considers them obsolete based on the fact that they're more than 2 cycles beyond the current generation of air packs. We have 2 that are currently out of service and need of repair. Seems to kind of be an ongoing thing at the moment. There's parts that are just wearing out and breaking. We had 2 incidents on the 26th in the early morning hours. We had a dumpster fire. They were worn out at the Whately Diner. And then a few hours later, 3 in the morning, we had a carbon monoxide incident. We had members wearing those inside the residence as well. So it's not just, you know, when we go to a structure fire that we're wearing this equipment. The 15 air packs would provide air packs for each seated position on our fire trucks. That's kind of the standard practice across the industry. And I've gotten a couple of quotes over the last several years. We've been trying to get these on a grant. We've been unsuccessful.
This is the same number of air packs that you were asking for last year.
It is.
And last year it was a $200,000.
Exactly, so the numbers are going up and down, and
Yeah.
last year there was, I was looking at the difference, I have last year's quote here with me. Last year, the big difference was actually not so much the price of the air pack frames themselves, but it was the air bottles, which we have 30 of as part of the project, because it's two bottles for every pack, the spare bottles. The price of the bottles has gone down by 50%. And last year, when I got the quote, there was a lot of speculation about what the industry was doing. People were still kind of reeling from COVID shortages, such, but I think the market has kind of kept caught up a little bit. The one thing I will say is that one of the quotes that I have, the most recent one is $156,000. But I would stay with the $183,000 request, because given the current state of our federal administration and the threat of tariffs on imports could affect this number significantly. And a lot of the vendors, including the one I got these quotes from, they're not at this time willing to give us quotes that are going into the next fiscal year, because if they get a 20% increase based on tariffs on the parts they're importing, they're obviously going to pass it on to us. So I think with the 183,000 will be should be pretty reasonable. After talking to a few vendors, they think that's a safe number to go with. One more thing that I will add is that every year we seem to be doing more calls like everybody else does. Last year we did 131 emergency calls at the Whately Fire Department. Thanks to our call firefighters in town, we were able to staff all of those without having to rely on mutual aid to cover any of the initial calls. We did have mutual aid come in for some of our bigger fires, but that's a pretty remarkable thing for a small town like ours. So we're doing pretty well. Out of those 131 calls, 12 of them were medical calls where we're assisting the EMS squads. But the rest of them were fire related calls. So the potential is there for these packs to be used more. I mean, I know it seems like it's a lot of money for not a lot of use, but it's a really important part of our protective.
You convinced us last year. We made it a priority A last year.
Okay.
I can't imagine we're gonna downgrade it this
All right.
year because because we're.
Yeah.
And it didn't get purchased last year.
We were waiting for a grant, see.
Ah.
Yeah.
It came through,
Yeah. So,
and it didn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Otherwise,
You gave us a great demonstration last year. You
Yeah.
brought in all kinds of
Yeah.
equipment and.
Still priority.
all right.
What would the time be, assuming this got approved at town meeting,
Yeah.
May 1st? When would you expect delivery? Assuming you put it in order immediately.
It's not as bad as it probably would have been, 2 years ago, because there was a big industry-wide shortage of a lot of parts. But with ordering 15 packs, I would assume we could get them within 6 months. Probably 3 to 6 months would be my guess. Depending which there's 2 different vendors that we probably would go with one or the other of the manufacturers of the packs, and the vendor would.
Yeah, I only asked if you had said, 12 to 18 months, I would say, can we split this over 2 years?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think we can get it all in. Yeah, in the fiscal year that it's awarded for sure.
Thanks.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Good night.
Highway. That narrow section of Christian Lane. We just leave it there indefinitely.
And that has nothing to do with this request.
It may be there indefinitely.
Yeah.
So I understand you had some questions for some of the things, but, what I can clarify for the Christian Lane culvert, when we first started this replacement process, we applied and were successful to get a grant to begin design work from the DER, which is the Department of Ecological Restorations. We got the grant. An engineer was brought on board and hired and came out and began doing work. Once they got on site and determined soil conditions and other aspects, it unfortunately escalated up from there. Subsequently, we went back to DER and applied again. And last year, we were not awarded any additional funding. We had a meeting recently with DER and Erica and myself met with them, and we feel confident that after listening to what their concerns were on our last grant, that the grant application, if we go forward again, can be improved. They've already made a commitment. I think it was like $57,000 is what they've already put on the table themselves, so they have as far as I'm concerned, have a mission to see it through as well, not just us. The one thing that we did do in last year's application was we had offered to meet or match with them a portion of the town's Chapter 90 money. And that's pretty much where it still sits. We're going to have a meeting with the engineer on February 4th. Coming here to talk about things again, in preparation for applying to the same grant. So at the moment, I don't really think there's any need of this in front of the CPC, CIPC, in regards to if we can get the funding from additional funding from DER and Whately matches with some Chapter 90 like we agreed to last year, that'll get us through a design process. Now, another thing with, there's a lot of speculation about why it's such an expensive project. Well, one of the things with DER funding, we have to meet the stream crossings to the maximum. There's no deviation from it. That's something that we're gonna contemplate and talk about at this meeting on the 4th, but at the moment, we have no choice other than to meet the stream standard crossings to the maximum. Which drives it up. Another thing that causes the current culvert is about 5 feet wide. Any culvert or any structure over 10 feet wide trips what's called Chapter 85 review, which means the state looks at it as it's a bridge, no longer a culvert, and the design criteria changes drastically. The reason the present design had it at a 16-foot open bottom arch, so it'd be like an arch. Couple things that we have to work with is making the culvert wider to accommodate higher flows, but we don't have the ability to raise it in the air because of the grade elevations. We can't have like a big hump in the road where you wouldn't be able to see on each side of the road, so you can't like build a bridge up and over it to get a bigger opening. So the only way to do it is to go wider. So really, that's about the best I can do to update you in regards to that culvert. I think the outcome of the meeting on the 4th will perhaps point us in a different direction, but right now, that's where I feel we are, and that I don't need anything at this year's annual town meeting for funding.
So you're saying ignore this request
For
for the moment?
now,
Okay.
that's because again. I just assume spend state money if we can get it. And after talking with them, with DER last week. I think we can.
It sounds like it's gonna depend on what the, sorry, what the cost of the final product is, whether it's worth it to forego possible grant money if it's much less expensive,
And this is
not to meet the high level that is required.
perhaps, yes, and again, this is still only in the design phase, it's not actual construction. Another opportunity we have is once we get it design completed. Then we can apply to other mass highway. Grant programs. For the funding, for the construction, and that would be the avenue that we would take for that.
Yeah, but it also, from what I know of the project, there's a big variation of different design types based on footings and
Correct.
how the whole is supported. And
You know,
some are
and
much less expensive than others, but may not be worth.
this is the frustrating part about. The existing culvert is built on the materials that's there. Most likely. It is the footings that they used are probably hemlock logs. That's the same thing we encountered when we took the bridge out on Swamp Road back in the 90s. They cut down full length trees and cut all the branches off and took the bark off it, and that was what they used.
And that's been done
And
roughly
it's-
when.
Stays in, as long as like logs stay underwater, they won't rot. And they give you a good spread footing, but. Whatever it is that's holding, is the foundation or the footings on this stone culvert, it's been there. And it hasn't moved, but yet. No engineer in this day will put a stamp of approval on it. It'd be like, no engineer, no carpenter is going to be able to submit a set of plans.
We're talking about,
For a
we're
house.
talking about structures that are 19th century, possibly 18th century.
Yes, probably 18th century. And it hasn't gone anywhere, so it's frustrating because I sit there and say, well, why can't we work? With something else, and they won't look, there's just. And again, dealing with Mass DOT, the state is not going to allow anything other than a full set of construction plans with a stamp of approval on it, it's just the way things are now, and it's frustrating, so. We gotta play that kind of game. So that's where that's at.
Okay,
As far as the questions that you had in regards to the town hall. It was painted in 2012. It was, done with community preservation money. At that time, and so that's where it stands right now. It is peeling again, that's why I have it on
it was not painted as part of the renovation.
the only thing that was done in the renovation is a little bit of touch-up work.
Oh.
But by no means was it fully painted, no. And so the estimate that, I had submitted. Would be. For the 3 sides, but there is some on the east side up, up like on the 2nd floor, which was not part of the. Addition. That, anyways, we had an option of doing the east side as well, which, I think by the time we actually get to it, if it doesn't get funded this year, it should be all done at once. Not like 3/4 of it.
That's silly.
Yeah,
Correct.
just do it while you're there. Yeah.
Correct.
And you say when this was done in 2012,
12.
it was paid for by community preservation money. Because then there's no reason it could not
That
be
is
done that
correct.
way again.
There should be no reason why, if, again, it's following the historical
Yeah.
preservation of the
Yeah.
building. I talked emailed with Judy, the historical commission would recommend and support the same scenario.
And for CPC request due in December, can we still put in a request now or this to CPC for?
I don't know on the timing,
Okay,
but they also do the off,
They have a
the off cycle.
okay.
If painting was considered regular maintenance, CPC money couldn't be used for it.
Well, that's why I asked if it was done that way
That's what
before.
I was
Can we
told,
do it
but,
again?
I don't know, I'd have to verify that, that's what I had gotten out of Judy Markle.
But maybe the distinction between historical buildings versus, say, regular municipal buildings. So if this is it.
A good question on that, I
Clearly,
don't have
if
that.
they did it with CPC money in the past, they were able to justify.
Maybe because it fell under the whole renovation of the
Maybe,
building.
yeah.
And not
Oh.
maintenance.
It was
It
years
was
before.
Yeah, that was before, that's,
Before the
yeah,
renovation.
yeah, 2012 before the.
2012.
Right, it was well before the renovation. Huh. Well, then, yeah, it should be fun.
Bob Klinger, for those of you who don't know me, library trustee.
Yeah.
Here for the library. Sorry to interrupt, Keith,
No,
but
by all means.
does it make sense? Cause we're gonna need exterior painting of the trim on the library. Is there any reason to lump these together? Or is there no reason? I just throw it out.
The issue may come down to the town hall would come under historic preservation and the library at this point wouldn't.
Okay,
That's my
Because of
guess of where the
age.
distinction would lie.
because of the age of the
Yeah.
actual structure. Okay. Okay.
But if there is no. If that's not an issue, I mean, it's. I suppose it could be looked at.
That was, I meant, if, I don't think I asked you this question, Keith, because I've been busy, but that was one of the questions I was supposed to ask you. Was, does it make sense to lump these together?
I don't think we can lump painting or anything regarding two different buildings together unless there's some obvious connection.
Okay.
It's not just about efficiency.
I don't see why not.
I mean, that's, and it really, I don't think it has nothing to do with us again, I mean, we're just prioritizing.
Right.
The relative merits of the projects and then pass it on to the
Right.
finance committee.
Right.
They can decide how to lump it together if they want to or not.
Right.
It's just for us to say, yes, it needs it or.
So a number of stakeholders in town who have, say, painting needs could all come together. And with one project that says, we're gonna paint this, we're gonna paint this, we're gonna paint this, and here's the,
Yeah.
it just seems an odd.
Yeah,
to
then
do
we
it.
have to determine the
It
funding.
still doesn't fall under what our job is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that I
it, it would be an unusual way of doing it, but if you save money by making it, get a lower bid.
That's for the finance committee.
Right. That would be the cost benefit.
And we'd certainly have less square footage.
Right.
Because we're just looking at the trim.
Yeah, but I think the problem may come down to the funding source,
Yep,
which we don't deal with, but that would be the problem.
understood.
But there's some aspects of it that would make sense, for instance. The contractor brings in and rents a lift. It's there. Now now you're not having to mobilize that lift,
Right.
move it in twice, it's there once. Just drive it from one building to the next.
No, there are certainly potential savings of doing a bigger overall painting project.
I don't know if you have any other questions for me at the moment, that's what I had to offer.
That's good, thank you.
Thank you, Keith.
Library.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us tonight.
Thanks for being patient with me.
Yes.
Well, you never know how fast they're gonna go. Sometimes they go very
I
fast.
guess you're on the clock anyway, so it's fine.
Yeah. I'm the chairman of the board of trustees of the library, and Bob is the chairman of the our subcommittee on maintenance. In December, the library is gonna be 75 years old. And we, about 2.5 years ago, we created our maintenance subcommittee and did it, and a complete analysis inside and outside of the building about things that had just happened to the building as it's aged. And we discovered, you know, cracks in the masonry, cracks in the chimney upstairs, et cetera, et cetera. We discovered the need for a new roof over the rotunda, for which we've already applied for CPC funding. And one other thing that we discovered is that we need an awful lot of painting done. And the problem with that is with its age and construction at about 1949, 1950, we're pretty convinced that we might have lead paint situation. And we don't know if it has ever been analyzed, if the building has ever been analyzed for lead paint, if it's been analyzed for example, we have a 46-year-old boiler, may need replacing. We're in there the other day looking at the pipes and they're all wrapped. Generally speaking, that wrapping is to prevent the friability of asbestos. So almost every time we try to paint something, for example, we had some, as you could see from this, we had some water get inside the duty room downstairs, and it's bubbled the plaster, and now pieces of it are falling off. We don't know exactly what's behind that. So our first proposal to you is we want to analyze the environment of the library. And we want specifically to analyze it for lead paint, asbestos, and air quality. And so I'll let Bob talk about that because he's been the point person on contacting the sources for this sort of thing. Because in order to even to paint over, to fix up where the plaster's cracked, we may need to wrap the room because we can know what's in there. So I'll let Bob.
We've gotten multiple estimates, ranging from about $3,900, $4,000 up to $14,000. The reason for the discrepancy is we don't know what we have. I've reached out to multiple different companies to do all the different testing. We think it's important to get sorry, I'm just gonna take a step back because just trying to understand what's in the building, trying to understand what we have so that as we move forward with it, we know, for example, on the exterior, is it lead-based? Isn't it? So give us an idea when we go to paint that. Our options that I've found are that we can independently reach out to different contractors and have somebody do lead, somebody do air quality. Maybe the lead will do the asbestos, maybe they won't. And so it would be multiple companies, or we found one company that for $6,900 will do everything that we're asking. And they will bundle it together in a report that the town can keep, Keith or whoever follows on after him can keep, we can keep, because we've had issues where there were questions of in the basement closet. What is that on the wall? It's dusty, it's peeling, and so what we did on our own, we had the mason who did some work for us outside, came through and he didn't touch it, he just covered it and sealed it in. And that solved that issue. We've had some other questions about, is there mold and mildew in the building? There were some books that were produced and there were questions asked by one of the other trustees about that. And so what we're trying to do, what I'm proposing that we try to do is understand what we have. Understand what's there, so that we can put to rest some of the issues, or if they are issues, address them. Then we'll know. So that's why it's almost a two-step process. We would like to paint the basement. We'd like to paint the outside. We have other issues that we want to make you aware of, just to help the town understand if we up our budget, our maintenance budget, there's cascading effects within our budget that then cause us to spend, so say we double our maintenance budget to $12,000. It's not just a $6,000 additional cost for the library, because there's additional funds that we have to then spend to meet state aid. So it becomes a bigger question of, for us with the town, as we're getting into some of these bigger ticket items, how do we address those? We don't think as trustees, and Bob and I have talked about this, that us putting forward a larger budget that then cascades out further is necessarily the best way to go. The reason we're here is to talk to you guys, talk to everybody here about what is the best, is this the best avenue? We've, as Bob mentioned, we've tried to use CPC funding where we can. We've been successful in some areas. We're looking, and not in others, but we're learning. And we're reaching out and trying to understand the best way for us to maintain this building so that it can be 70 years on, still a good quality building. So this is our thinking. Our thinking is we start with the whole analysis of the building. We understand where we are. The assumption we have is it's clean. None of the employees have demonstrated any kind of sickness or any issues that would be attributed back to the building. No patrons have ever questioned. But we want to stay ahead of that since it was brought up in a public meeting. Unfortunately, I have to bring it up again in a public meeting, but it's already out there. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to address the issues that have been put on the table the best way we can figure out. So if I can go through the rest of the questions, and then the second page was just.
I just interrupt.
Yeah.
And this stops us kicking the can down the road. This board of trustees is gonna try to undertake getting the answers so that 5 boards of trustees from now don't have to wonder whether we've got lead paint, or when the last time it was painted, did they cover something up and not deal with it? We'd like to know what we have so that we can deal with it.
I'm 99% sure that when you walk in, the floor tile in the adult stack room has asbestos, either mastic or asbestos in the floor tile. When we did, I mean, that's just what they did when they built the building. So we know that, and the reason I'm that certain is when we did the lift project, we ran into floor tiles in that closet that brought everything to a halt for 2 or 3 weeks, and then it was an extra $650 or so. So it wasn't a terribly large expense, but this would give whoever comes along, it would give us, it would give future people, future trustees, knowledge of what is there, what is existing.
If I
Yeah,
can interject. The issue I have with that is that if you do this and you find things out, does that create a duty to remediate? Are we now on notice as a town that we are liable?
I think we are.
It
And I
does.
think that's.
Well,
a
yeah,
valid
but
question,
if we do not do the study, we are not liable because we've got no knowledge of it.
But
You're
But
only
that's
you're
above-
only liable if you have
that's above
knowledge.
our-
That's above my pay grade.
our pay grade.
I
That
can't-
certainly makes me uncomfortable. Like ignorance is, I mean, I
Yeah.
hear where you're coming
That,
from.
in terms of liability, ignorance can be a defense. Once you have knowledge of something, you're liable and for remediation and any suits that may be brought on account of that, and you can't say I didn't know because
Understood, and
you've gone out and brought this information in on yourself.
that's why I felt, and Bob and I haven't specifically talked about this, but personally, I don't feel as a trustee of just the library that that position allows me to make that decision. I've been made aware of the potential for something, and I need to raise it as a town resident, I need to raise it to the people in the town to make the decision.
Yeah, I'm
That's
just
all.
raising the legal point that when you proactively do this, you're opening a door. Or a potential door.
So there is a potential ask of town council.
Yeah.
As a resident, I am not comfortable with ignorance, though I don't wanna put the town at risk of lawsuits. But I would like to know from town council then, what risk, cause, you know, like. I'm not sure that if we knew that something, like, no child is gonna like start eating a tile. But there might be situations under which if we knew that were a risk, we would have to remediate it
Well,
sooner rather than
And we have had conversations with painters and painting companies about lead paint. I believe this was one of the conversations we had, Pete, where the rules and regulations cover residential and childcare. And I believe maybe schools. But they do not cover the library and lead paint. The regulations, my understanding is that you can have lead paint. It's when you go to scrape it and repaint it, and if you dig into the wall as you're repairing the wall, then you have issues because then dust is getting in the air, and then you need to deal with remediation. And then the painters, that's when they bring up any paint chip above whatever size that is lead paint, if they're not lead paint certified, it's an enormous fine, and they don't want to be any part of that.
I think it's we can certainly ask council, but,
Yeah.
I think it's based on the item, so lead and asbestos, I believe you don't have to remediate unless you're doing something that's going to disturb it. Mold, however, could be something that once you are aware of it, you do have to do immediate action. So that's but we could certainly.
Well, yeah, but we've got a situation downstairs at the library where some of the paint is bubbling. If that was lead paint behind, does the bubbling and exposure trigger a need to remediate?
Well,
I mean, these are, I don't know the answer to these questions, but
in this.
but in the
second
world of
request-
liability, there are all kinds of.
Well,
Triggers and-
in the second request for $14,000, which was the high. And I have all those estimates, I apologize, I didn't get them to you, this is my first time through. In the future, if this happens again, I'll make sure I get it disseminated beforehand. But the $14,000 estimate was to fully tarp, to overpressure and pump the air outside and filter
And block off space so that
The lift.
could be still used, so that patrons could use the bathrooms when they're downstairs. So that's why it's high, because it's so complicated.
And the reason for that, we were pushing, again, all of this came out pretty much all together. We were trying to get that done because as part of the water ingress into that room, we had issues with the flooring. And then the flooring was replaced, and we had issues because the floor that was replaced lifted. So what they did this past fall was we brought them back in and they sealed the concrete floor to solve any water coming up from below. And so at around that time, it was very humid in there when they had pulled everything up. That's when the mold and mildew were noticed. But I'm not a mold and mildew expert.
I don't think any of us are.
Right, so so that's why it's. Part of this, I feel that. It's my job, our job, to make the town aware of some of the issues we're having. And. What's the best way? I mean, we're all in this same thing together. What's the best way forward?
Exactly, that, question is it? How urgent is it to do this? One, and is doing it all at once the proper way to do it, or doing it on a project by project basis? When you want to deal with a certain area, you get that area evaluated. Those are decisions, those are the questions that.
Yeah.
We
Because
have to address.
I see the logic of what you're trying to do and sort of support, probably as a homeowner, I would go about it the same way, right? Like, understand the lay of the land. But we are looking at these through the lens of urgency. And so what I'm not quite hearing is the sort of narrative like, well, we need to do this, spending this money now is because if we don't do this right away, then there are gonna be these other costs we can't anticipate down the road. I'm a little muddled on that. I mean, I heard that you wanna repaint the lower level. I've worked down there, all for that. I don't know that just having that painted and tested as part of that particular project would be the best way.
It's, our task is a little odd on this committee, because we're not really, evaluating whether does the town want to spend the money on it, does the town have the money to spend on it? We literally have like priority A, B, and C, and it's sort of, and it is based on urgency and like,
Well, we certainly
and so
don't,
we just grade them and then we
Yeah.
hand them to the finance committee.
we certainly don't have like what JP has with the fire department.
Yeah.
I understand
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
and-
exactly.
And we do not have that. The building is old. We have been slowly and steadily working on it. Since I came on board, which was around times when the lift project was just getting rolling. We're gonna keep going because Bob mentioned, I did a big inventory of everything. And so the plan is to begin to stage things, so it's not a big chunk. Things happen more, over time, and then they're also, we can plan for them a little more. So yeah, the urgency on this, we would like to get it done so we could get the room painted. And we could understand and put to bed some of the questions that have been raised.
But let me, sorry to interrupt you. Could you move forward with the painting project without doing this?
Yes, because the painting project, the contractor assumes the presence of lead and is going to act as if it is.
If you did this and thereby became what you might say is a more educated consumer, you know what's actually there, does that put you in a better position to negotiate? Like, is there an argument here that you could be saving the town money by having this knowledge? Or it's like, having the knowledge is good and lets you plan what you want to do over N years, but you still have to paint this.
Well, here's the problem. If we test and it's clear, then we've spent basically $7,000 to get everything
Right,
that we're asking for,
right.
including the lead paint. And then it would be a $4,000 painting of the basement room.
So if you knew there was no lead paint at all in the basement,
Right.
then you could get a lower quote, because you could basically tell the painter, you don't have to worry about lead paint.
You don't have to worry about it, and here's the documentation we have that we have tested. Here's who did the testing, here's, and then it's not our word,
Right,
and that's their protection. If somebody says, how do you know it doesn't have lead paint? But if we do the testing and spend, say, $7,000 and there is lead paint, then we're looking at $14,000.
and you don't wanna just be surprised by having a painter come in and say, guess what?
The painter wouldn't do the testing?
The painter that the
Grace paint.
right, so I reached out to a couple of painters that I know, and when I asked they gave us estimates, and they said, well, I don't think there's lead.
I won't lick the chips, but.
and then I went to Florence Paint and I said, who comes in here that you guys like? Who you know is lead certified? And we got the name of a company and they came out and they did a real quick test. And that test was negative,
They just tested a few surfaces.
right?
Yes.
But they took some chips. And they were going to send those in to have them tested.
Their testing lab would back up the findings of the on-site item. It's like a litmus paper kind of data.
Yeah.
Right.
If
But
it
that's,
doesn't, if it stays yellow, it's okay, and if it's pink, you got one.
but then I had given them instructions that we were trying to get the room painted before the holiday tree lighting party. So they said, we won't get the results back, so we have to assume. So there's this push-pull with them of, okay, could we get the cost down if we commit to them and they do the testing? But then we're still kind of in the same boat.
But couldn't you just do that case by case? Like, if they're doing the testing, and, I mean, you obviously didn't get it done for the tree lighting.
No.
So have them do the testing, and then you'll know if it's 14,000 or 4,000. And you haven't spent $7,000.
Right, that is one option. We can do that for each individual painting.
Seems like that's, like, is it
Right,
gonna add up to $7,000 worth of,
Well, we
Extra
still don't know
cost.
about the asbestos and the
right, but
environmental.
each contractor that comes through that is certified will let you know without us spending 7,000 if it's there or not.
And we also don't know. Whether every painter will acknowledge this tester. Some may come and say, oh, this guy's a charlatan, he'll approve anything. I'm not saying you would hire that person, but that's always a possibility. Or 25 years from now, someone comes in to do some work and you present a 25-year-old evaluation. Are they going to
Things
take
change.
things to?
But
they
if someone's
take that?
certified right now, it's on their back.
Right,
It's
and
not
that
there.
the certifying company may well be out of business at that point. How long does that overall evaluation hold up?
So maybe just to get back to what we're about.
Which is an
Right,
urgency in a
right.
sense.
I don't know any more that we're going to learn
Yeah.
from this dialogue related to. I don't think any of us are suggesting withdrawing this proposal, nor are you, like Keith did, voluntarily withdrawing this proposal. So we are still going to prioritize this project as either A, urgent, B, should have, or C, nice to have. Is there anything else that we can learn from it?
Except they will see with the finance committee when you have the same discussion.
Yeah.
That's fine, I mean, this is, we're trying to look after the building as best we're trying to, there's the collection, there's the building, there's the funds that the library has. There's multiple assets. My focus is more of, at least here tonight, is more of the building, and making sure that so that's,
And our job is just to evaluate the urgency necessity of it.
there we go.
Great.
Any
Thank
other
you.
questions?
No,
I think that's it. Okay.
love the library.
Yeah.
Do, I don't wanna
We'll
get sick from
that. Yeah.
Okay, so there's nothing more for us to do.
Nope.
No,
Okay.
thank you.
Mission accomplished. Okay, thank you for these materials.
Yeah.
This report of health, Brand,
Thank you for waiting, Fran.
is he still alive and kicking?
Yes.
There it is,
There it is.
up close.
Fran's eyes.
There he is. Yeah, you got the.
Fran wakes up.
So anyway, it'll make life easier. There's not a lot of urgency involved in this proposal. It's just to get it on your agenda. It's mostly a financial concern over the many years that we've had this transfer station compactor, a trash compactor, costs us money over time. Probably we could have bought one, a new one even, and saved the town money in the long run. We figure 20 to 30 years worth of life for this kind of equipment. There's obviously some maintenance costs. Don't know exactly how much, but 750 to 1,000 maybe tops. We've had the paper compactor down there since 2017, and we have not touched it. It's working fine. They do go a long time and without me.
Do we own that one?
Yeah, we bought that with
That's
a capital planning request back then. Mhm. So, I don't have a lot more to say, it's just in that context. And, maybe another year. I don't even have a quote from Wickles, who owns the compactor unit, nor do I know exactly how old it is. If it's really reaching end of life, then obviously we're not as interested. And so,
And can you comment at all about how reliable it has been? Like, has it?
oh yeah, I mean, totally. The only issue we ever had with that thing was a very cold snap that I can remember about 10 or so years ago, where it froze. The plunger actually froze in there. But that's when there was also a kind of a puddle at the bottom. And that got straightened out or flattened out or raised a little bit. So we haven't had any issues like
And
that.
is there some, from Wickles, do they do some sort of periodic, maintenance? Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
just thinking about the
yes.
O and M costs in addition to the purchase.
It would be if we
Okay.
owned it, obviously. Right now, we don't pay any of that because it's his machine, his equipment. So yeah, that would be in addition to actually buying it. There are refurbed units. This one would certainly fall into the used category. And, the price should be drastically lower than the amount I actually put in the request. But
Oh, what do you think the price might actually be?
for that particular unit,
I don't know, yes. Yeah,
I would say max 6,000 something.
that's the
If we
cost,
could get it, yeah. Mhm.
that's the cost of 2 years of renting.
Yes, right. But again, that would be a negotiation with the current owner, Wickles. And it's, sticky negotiation. Just getting figures for trash hauling and fees is a major effort that has come to naught so far for next fiscal year. But I keep pushing them. We'll have some more numbers, but again, this is not like a pending concern. You guys can put this somewhere in the back burner.
I've got one other question.
Yeah.
Would there be any consideration or we're looking at rebuilding the highway department garage, which
Mhm.
means will impact the transfer station. Is this unit in any way specific to that location, or could it be moved?
Could be moved, but
repositioned?
I would suggest that would be the opportune moment to think about owning and actually buying maybe a new piece, which is up in the 20s, 20,000 plus. So
Yeah,
would
I'm
be,
saying that if we do that, would it pay for us? I mean, if we get for 6,000, with just 2 years, highway department won't be built by then anyway.
yeah,
Um,
right.
But if we're looking in 7 or 8 years buying a new unit anyway, does it make sense to buy this old unit now?
No, I mean, they could be, you'd move it with wherever the ramp went or the transportation part of this project went. you could.
Yeah, we've got no idea right now what
Yeah,
that project
right.
is gonna look like at all, but we hope it happens.
Someday. Yeah, yeah,
We're
yeah,
working on it.
it's a little hypothetical. I wouldn't want to say, if we bought then a new machine, obviously, we would move it with um, the, the construction project wherever it ends up.
Yeah, but at that point, $20,000 would be a very small percentage of the overall project cost.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay,
All right, that gives us all we need to know, Fran.
thank you, Fran.
Perfect.
Thanks for
Yep.
coming.
Yep, no problem. Have a good one. Bye,
Yes.
Bye.
bye.
Were there others that you had questions on?
No, I,
I think that was it.
that's all the questions or the new ones.
That's a lot of information.
Yeah. So I'm assuming we're not gonna, missing Dan, and we're not gonna try to do any prioritization tonight, this is kind of late.
Yeah, I'm the dinner maker. And I don't have it.
So we should probably wrap up for tonight and pick a date for a next meeting.
Okay.
And just remind me for committee attendees who couldn't be here for this, so they can continue to vote and participate.
Oh, yeah,
Do they
they
have
would
to
review the
view-
minutes.
They must just review the minutes, they don't have to review the meeting recording.
They don't have to, they
They
can.
can.
The
For
requirement
the
is,
planning board,
the requirement by the state is you review the minutes.
just review the minutes.
Yep. Because the minutes are the official record, not the recording. You don't vote on the recording.
Planning board, you had to, never, okay, whatever.
Planning board may have
I can
different.
tell,
It might be
no,
for like,
the planning board in
like a
Massachusetts,
public
like all
hearing.
public.
If it's a
Okay.
public hearing that
Yes.
gets interrupted,
Yes.
then you have to be there.
Yes.
But that's
And you do
a-
have-
It's quasi
different story.
judicial, which this isn't.
Okay.
Yeah, but no, zoning board and planning boards, you have to state that you reviewed the minutes. And that you, and therefore will be accepted as a voting member, but recordings aren't considered the actual record. Because you don't vote on that. Your board doesn't vote on your video, right?
We do not.
You vote on the minutes, so that's the reason why the AG says that you have to state as a voting member that you're going to review the previous minutes.
All right, appreciate it. That's something that we're done. Okay, when should we meet again? I mean, I guess we have no new questions, we have all the information we need.
I could do next Monday.
yeah, just do next week, right?
You know,
The following Monday, I'm away. That's not good.
The third.
the third,
The third,
this looks fine, 5 o'clock.
Yeah, I could do February 3rd at 5. So put the meetings on the town calendar.
No. But it could be that they're not posted yet. Because we're. That's okay, but so February 3rd, Monday, February 3rd.
February 3rd at 5 o'clock. Second.
Favor?
Yeah.
Aye.